character will stand the higher. For it is hard to say whether a promise forgotten, a hope deceived does not make us more enemies than a favor granted brings us friends. Dear friend, there are certain little matters on which I may dwell, for I know them, and it comes within my province to impart them. Be not too confiding, nor frivolous, nor over-enthusiastic, 3 rocks on which youth often strikes. Too confiding a nature loses respect, frivolity brings contempt, and others take advantage of excessive enthusiasm. In the first place, Felix, you will never have more than 2 or 3 friends in the course of your life. Your entire confidence is their right. To give it to many is to betray your real friends. If you are more intimate with some men than with others, keep guard over yourself. Be as cautious as though you knew they would one day be your rivals, or your enemies. The chances and changes of life require this. Maintain an attitude which is neither cold nor hot. Find the medium point at which a man can safely hold intercourse with others without compromising himself. Yes, believe me, the honest man is as far from the base cowardice of Philinte as he is from the harsh virtue of Alceste. The genius of the poet is displayed in the mind of this true medium. Certainly all minds enjoy more the ridicule of virtue than the sovereign contempt of easygoing selfishness which underlies that picture of it. But all, nevertheless, are prompted to keep themselves from either extreme. As to frivolity, if it causes fools to proclaim you a charming man, others who are accustomed to judge of men's capacities and fathom character, will winnow out your terror and bring you to disrepute. For frivolity is the resource of weak natures, and weakness is sooner praised in a society which regards its members as nothing more than organs, and perhaps justly, for nature herself puts to death imperfect beings. A woman's protecting instincts may be roused by the pleasure she feels in supporting the weak against the strong, and in leading the intelligence of the heart to victory over the brutality of matter. But society, less a mother than a stepmother, adores only the children who flatter her vanity. As to ardent enthusiasm, that first sublime mistake of youth, which finds true happiness in using its powers, and begins by being its own dupe before it is the dupe of others, keep it within the region of the heart's communion, keep it for woman and for God. Do not hawk its treasures in the bazaars of society or of politics, where trumpery will be offered in exchange for them. Believe the voice which commands you to be noble in all things when it also prays you not to expend your forces uselessly. Unhappily, men will rate you according to your usefulness, and not according to your worth. To use an image which I think will strike your poetic mind, let a cipher be what it may, immeasurable in size, written in gold, or written in pencil, it is only a cipher after all. A man of our times has said, "No zeal, above all, no zeal." The lesson may be sad, but it is true, and it saves the soul from wasting its bloom. Hide your pure sentiments, or put them in regions inaccessible, where their blossoms may be passionately admired, where the artist may dream amorously of his masterpiece. But duties, my friend, are not sentiments. To do what we ought is by no means to do what we like. A man who would give his life enthusiastically for a woman must be ready to die coldly for his country. One of the most important rules in the science of manners is that of almost absolute silence about ourselves. Play a little comedy for your own instruction. Talk of yourself to acquaintances, tell them about your sufferings, your pleasures, your business, and you will see how indifference succeeds pretended interest. Then annoyance follows, and if the mistress of the house does not find some civil way of stopping you, the company will disappear under various pretexts adroitly seized. Would you, on the other hand, gather sympathies about you and be spoken of as amiable and witty, and a true friend? Talk to others of themselves, find a way to bring them forward, and brows will clear, lips will smile, and after you leave the room all present will praise you. Your conscience and the voice of your own heart will show you the line where the cowardice of flattery begins and the courtesy of intercourse ceases. One word more about a young man's demeanor in public. My dear friend, youth is always inclined to a rapidity of judgment which does it honor, but also injury. This was why the old system of education obliged young people to keep silence and study life in a probationary period beside their elders. Formerly, as you know, nobility, like art, had its apprentices, its pages, devoted body and soul to the masters who maintained them. Today youth is forced in a hothouse. It is trained to judge of thoughts, actions, and writings with biting severity. It slashes with a blade that has not been fleshed. Do not make this mistake. Such judgments will seem like censures to many about you, who would sooner pardon an open rebuke than a secret wound. Young people are pitiless because they know nothing of life and its difficulties. The old critic is kind and considerate, the young critic is implacable. The one knows nothing, the other knows all. Moreover, at the bottom of all human actions there is a labyrinth of determining reasons on which God reserves for himself the final judgment. Be severe therefore to none but yourself. Your future is before you. But no one in the world can make his way unaided. Therefore, make use of my Father's house. Its doors are open to you. The connections that you will create for yourself under his roof will serve you in 100 ways. But do not yield an inch of ground to my mother. She will crush anyone who gives up to her, but she will admire the courage of whoever resists her. She is like iron, which if beaten, can be fused with iron, but when cold will break everything less hard than itself. Cultivate my mother. For if she thinks well of you, she will introduce you into certain houses where you can acquire the fatal science of the world. The art of listening, speaking, answering, presenting yourself to the company and taking leave of it. The precise use of language, the something, how shall I explain it? Which is no more superiority than the coat is the man, but without which the highest talent in the world will never be admitted within those portals. I know you well enough to be quite sure I indulge no illusion when I imagine that I see you as I wish you to be. Simple in manners, gentle in tone, proud without conceit, respectful to the old, courteous without servility, above all, discreet. Use your wit but never display it for the amusement of others. For be sure that if your brilliancy annoys an inferior man, he will retire from the field and say of you in a tone of contempt, "He is very amusing." Let your superiority be leonine. Moreover, do not be always seeking to please others. I advise a certain coldness in your relations with men, which may even amount to indifference. This will not anger others, for all persons esteem those who slight them. And it will win you the favor of women, who will respect you for the little consequence that you attach to men. Never remain in company with those who have lost their reputation, even though they may not have deserved to do so. For society holds us responsible for our friendships as well as for our enmities. In this matter let your judgments be slowly and maturely weighed, but see that they are irrevocable. When the men whom you have repulsed justify the repulsion, your esteem and regard will be all the more sought after. You have inspired the tacit respect which raises a man among his peers. I behold you now armed with a youth that pleases, grace which attracts, and wisdom with which to preserve your conquests. All that I have now told you can be summed up in 2 words, 2 old-fashioned words: noblesse oblige. Quote, now apply these precepts to the management of life. You will hear many persons say that strategy is the chief element of success. That the best way to press through the crowd is to set some men against other men and so take their places. That was a good system for the Middle Ages, when princes had to destroy their rivals by pitting one against the other. But in these days, all things being done in open day, I am afraid it would do you ill service. No, you must meet your competitors face to face, be they loyal and true men, or traitorous enemies whose weapons are calumny, evil speaking, and fraud. But remember this, you have no more powerful auxiliaries than these men themselves. They are their own enemies. Fight them with honest weapons, and sooner or later they are condemned. As to the first of them, loyal men and true, your straightforwardness will obtain their respect, and the differences between you once settled. For all things can be settled. These men will serve you. Do not be afraid of making enemies. Woe to him who has none in the world you are about to enter. But try to give no handle for ridicule or disparagement. I say try for in Paris a man cannot always belong solely to himself. He is sometimes at the mercy of circumstances. You will not always be able to avoid the mud in the gutter nor the tile that falls from the roof. The moral world has gutters where persons of no reputation endeavor to splash the mud in which they live upon men of honor. But you can always compel respect by showing that you are, under all circumstances, immovable in your principles. In the conflict of opinions, in the midst of quarrels and cross-purposes, go straight to the point, keep resolutely to the question. Never fight except for the essential thing, and put your whole strength into that. You know how Monsieur de Mortsauf hates Napoleon, how he curses him and pursues him as justice as a criminal, demanding punishment day and night for the death of the Duc d'Enghien, the only death, the only misfortune, that ever brought the tears to his eyes. Well, he nevertheless admired him as the greatest of captains, and has often explained to me his strategy. May not the same tactics be applied to the war of human interests? They would economize time as heretofore they economized men and space. Think this over, for as a woman I am liable to be mistaken on such points which my sex judges only by instinct and sentiment. One point, however, I may insist on. All trickery, all deception, is certain to be discovered and to result in doing harm. Whereas every situation presents less danger if a man plants himself firmly on his own truthfulness. If I may cite my own case, I can tell you that, obliged as I am by Monsieur de Mortsauf's condition to avoid litigation and to bring to an immediate settlement all difficulties which arise in the management of Clochegourde, and which would otherwise cause him an excitement under which his mind would succumb, I have invariably settled matters promptly by taking hold of the knot of the difficulty and saying to our opponents, we will either untie it or cut it.